Greetings. So, as usual, we bring you a very exciting podcast today. We have the distinct pleasure of having Ms. Belinda Morrissey from ActionAid Australia board. She's currently the chair of their executive board. She has been visiting all our activities for the last few days now. She visited our office, some of the local rights program that we've been running in the greater Dhaka area, as well as she has been to Cox's Bazar to visit our work for the Rohingya camps. And she also had the opportunity to attend our annual general meeting, as well as the Feminist Green Action Award, which we just hosted. So it would be very interesting to get her feedback on what we are doing and how things are done by our colleagues in Australia. So with that, I now introduce you to Ms. Belinda Morrissey. Belinda, hello.
Thank you.
Once again, welcome to the Dhaka. So glad that you could join us for this exciting few days. And what are some of the things that you've enjoyed during your visit so far?
Well, it's certainly been an action-packed visit, that's for sure. The hospitality of the ActionAid Bangladesh team has been exemplary. Really just full of passionate, visionary people. So that, I think that whilst it's been really incredible to see all of the work on the ground, it's actually been meeting the people that have been the standout. Because in ActionAid Australia, obviously we go into Vanuatu quite a lot, and we work very closely with the team in Vanuatu. But you can only read so much in a report or hear about it or watch a video, but actually being with the team out on the projects, meeting the incredible women and youth that you work with, it's just sort of mind-blowing. It just really absolutely has blown me away. I'm almost speechless, which is saying something for me.
Well, thank you. That's quite the compliment. We appreciate that. Let us take from the very beginning. Both of you and I are look after the governance of our individual federation member organization. What do you think are some of the things that are doing that may be slightly different from how you do things in Australia that you think you would take back to your board? And what are some of the things you would suggest that perhaps we could adopt now that you've seen our operations that we may benefit from?
That's a great question. As you know, we don't have a broader General Assembly in Australia. And within my professional work, I work within the sort of social enterprise, social impact space. So I'm really interested in participatory governance. And even before I joined the ActionAid Bangladesh board, I was always inspired by the incredible participatory governance model that you have, where us as a board are actually accountable to the General Assembly. So that mechanism alone doesn't exist in Australia. And I think that that's actually quite an interesting issue that I will certainly be taking back to Australia. We have members, but we don't have a General Assembly per se. And I guess the main reason is because we don't have in-country partners like you do, but we could still do a variation on that. I think that's something for us to really explore. And as far as exchanging, I think within the ActionAid Australia board, I'm really passionate about ensuring that every decision that we take is taken with the North Star, with the women that we aim to serve in mind. So we're really deliberate about that connection to that North Star, as we call it. And one of the ways that we actually ensure that we have that thinking in our mind is I've introduced a framework that is a pyramid, if you like. So at the base of the pyramid for every board meeting, we have the general business of being a board. So the finance, the governance, all of those sorts of components. And then above that, we look at the social impact of the programs that ActionAid Australia is supporting. So how can we govern for that social impact of ActionAid Australia? And then at the top of the pyramid is actually how can we govern for always ensuring that North Star and understanding the systemic barriers. So we actually have built that into the agenda of every board meeting. So it refers to each agenda item refers to where it sits. So we do it very sort of within that framework. It's quite interesting, and it seems to have been a really interesting way to engage the board and the team around that.
Okay. And you're also, one of the other hats you wear is you're the official ActionAid International representative to our board. And in that capacity, you've attended our board meetings via Zoom before. And now you actually got to see our annual general meeting live. So if you had to report back to ActionAid International, what are some of the points you would bring to their attention, good and bad, either way? What would be your take on it?
Good, of course. Look, I think that again, it was because it was an AGM, so you're there with people. So the opportunity to meet the General Assembly and even the other board members, because most of them I'd only have met on Zoom, and that's just a little tiny picture. So I think that the ability to be there in person at the AGM was an opportunity to really immerse myself in the questions that were coming through and things like that. Obviously they were in language, but I was getting little translations. And I think that having that broader ability to understand what people are thinking came through from the AGM. And you don't get that when you're just sitting at the other end of the Zoom call. So that was really instrumental, because for me it's a massive journey of learning more about the way that ActionAid Bangladesh works, but also how the geopolitical streams and the cultural streams and the intersection of all of that plays out for gender equality in Bangladesh is really complicated. So as an outsider, it's something that I need to immerse myself and learn and continually learn. So that was a beautiful opportunity last night to do that. Great.
And you've visited some of our local rights program as well as our work at the Rohingya camps. What was that experience like for you and the way we work? Do you have any recommendation for us if we could be doing something different, or are there certain things that stuck out in your mind that perhaps you could carry back to other countries for a knowledge transfer situation?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think for us in Australia, it's important that we can tell the stories. And the stories don't come, as I said, from written work. They come from meeting people and from learning and, even being at happy homes and hearing all the aspirations. So understanding that these girls would not have had the ability to even have that aspiration if it wasn't for the work that's happening within happy homes. And that theme carried through with every single LRP that we visited and the camps. And it's very difficult to understand, for example, the issue around the camps from the outside in Australia, because we don't have a refugee camp in Australia per se. And so having the opportunity to start to begin to understand was really critical. But to see the hope was really important. And everywhere you went, even though it was a really difficult situation, I saw people with hope in their hearts and in their minds, and that was really inspirational. It fills you right back up.
That's great. And so if we also talked about the alternate financing and how it can play a role for the development sector in the coming days, because as we know, some of the funding we used to get historically, those are shifting away due to geopolitical reasons and other reasons as well. So how do you see blended finance or impact investment changing the landscape of the development sector in the coming years?
Yeah, look, that is a really good question. And I think there's opportunity, absolutely opportunity for ActionAid Bangladesh. But what we have to also ensure is that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as we might say in Australia. That the work that so if you talk, Zayad, about from cradle to grave, understanding the journey of a woman. So impact investment is only going to be appropriate at that point where she can return, or there's some mechanism to return on that investment. But there's so much work that needs to happen beforehand, and that's traditionally been the role of ActionAid. That's where we've really led into. So I think we need to ensure that impact investment is a complement to the work that we're already doing and doesn't ever get to be the replacement, because then we wouldn't be able to really respect and honour the woman's journey to that. So I think that certainly there's so much interest within the Indo-Asia region around impact investing, and it's just about how we ensure and hold that to account with a gender lens, and how we ensure that human rights are at the forefront, so that at all times with that capital flow, the women's voices and their needs are front of mind for us, which is our approach anyway. But ensuring that that flows through to others is going to be a really critical area for us to really focus that impact investing opportunities.
So ActionAid International, we have many federation members literally all over the world. So how do you see us being a stronger organization, having all the members there? And how do you think we can best utilize our network as a federation member going forward, in addition to what we have been doing already?
It's another really good question, Zaya. I think that networks are really important. And so networks of influence and understanding where the power sits. And, when we're in Vanuatu, you sit down literally and map the power in the villages and understand the chief has the power, but the chief's wife actually has an incredible amount of power. So understanding the influences of power is as important as the power itself. So I think that within ActionAid Federation, what we can do collectively better perhaps is understand the key influences around their various elements, and then our collective networks around that, so that we always talk about the work we do on the ground with the women and the youth, but actually the systems, the systemic lens around the complexity of those issues. Networking and advocacy is what's needed at that level, and collectively we're stronger together at that advocacy piece.
Yeah. And you and I, we have met at the ActionAid International General Assembly before, and then you got involved in our board. So, if we were to take snapshots of the two time in the of the two moments in history, when we first met, and what you sort of knew or thought you knew about ActionAid Bangladesh, and as of now what you've known, what is perhaps one or two most interesting things that you've discovered about what we do here in Bangladesh?
Yeah, I think actually, Zayad, a lot of it comes down to you as well, you and Farah, because what I see is the opportunity of the fact that you guys are keen to explore and push the boundaries and take risks. And as we move forward, we're in this incredible period of instability. There's all these geopolitical issues, there's climate, there's so much complexity that we have to think differently. And your ability and your willingness and your absolute eagerness to think differently is really exciting, and it's really contagious. And I think that, to me, is probably one of the key takeaways that I have.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And so with that, since we're talking about our individual passion for doing something good for the world, how did you find yourself in this space to begin with, in the development sector? Because from what I understand, that's not how you initially started your career as, but somehow along the way, you found your way here. So what has led you to this journey so far?
So I grew up in a very middle class family and had the privilege of going through university, which was fantastic. And I did economics because I wanted to understand business and I wanted to be able to sort of thrive in that environment. And I moved very quickly into the capital markets and very quickly overseas into sort of Hong Kong, London, places like that. And found a very clear lack of values alignment, shall we say. So yes, you can earn an incredible amount of money and you can see and experience the world, but I was very disillusioned by the values that I was seeing around me. And so it was when I was working in London that a client of mine was a community foundation. So I don't know if that model is very big here in Bangladesh, but this particular CEO of that community foundation, which is where you have donors in the local city or region who are funding projects in that region. So it's a give where you live model. And he was actually the granddaddy of the community foundation model. And he had actually set up the first one in Australia and also in New Zealand. And he just took me under his wing and he said, I'll show you the way the world really works. And it was such an impressive model because I thought, I can do that. That's something that I can absolutely do. It was about building relationships. It was about understanding money and the way it flows, but it was moving money for good. And so that really inspired me. When I moved back to Australia just after that and went back and did a postgraduate in philanthropy and moved into the philanthropic world to use my capital markets and my relationship management sort of skills to move capital for good. And I think that we need to be more focused on how we do that.
Okay. And speaking of us being a citizen of the world, this is your first trip to Bangladesh, if I'm not
First
mistaken.
of many, I hope.
Oh, thank you. You just led into the next question, perhaps. But so, how has your first trip to Bangladesh been so far? And what you might have thought about Bangladesh before, just looking at all the pictures and the videos, and now that you're here, what's your experience being in Bangladesh?
The noise, the chaos, which is, I think, and actually, the driving kind of sums it up because there's chaos and noise, but there's never any accidents. It's like everybody it flows. It's like, so whilst there is all this chaoticness here in Dhaka at any rate, there's this synergy. And I think it's the synergy and the underlying elements of sort of thinking through the philosophy of that synergy that I will take away as well, because how that synergy of the ActionAid Bangladesh works within the confines of political, religious, all those issues that come together. And yet you're doing your work and you're achieving so much. And so it's that sort of synergy of completely getting on and getting things done, regardless of all the noise and chaos around you, and actually using that as your benefit is really interesting.
That's a great analogy, and I do appreciate that because you've summed it up well. So your visit is about to come to an end in a few hours. So what would be some of your key takeaways, either being here with us at ActionAid, in ActionAid Bangladesh, or Bangladesh in general? What would be some of the fond memories that you would carry back?
Oh gosh, how long have we got, honestly? Fond memories, of course, is the people. For me, it's always about the people and understanding what drives them, and understanding the impact of the people on the ground. So I saw that in absolute spades. It was really impressive to experience the journey of the women and youth that we work with here. So, but also to experience the passion and energy of your ActionAid Bangladesh team. Absolutely exemplary. So that was exciting. And I think from Bangladesh as a country, because maybe with my sort of capital markets background, I'm really, really interested in this transition. And I see that in other countries that I work with is how economies are transitioning, but how do we ensure that human rights are at the center of that transition? And I think that's a big challenge in this country, and that, that is a role that ActionAid can really play in relation to sort of ensuring that the women's voices and needs are at the centre of that. And so we had a meeting this morning with the Australian High Commission team, and there was a really strong synergy around that transition. Economic and social transition have to be together. There can't be economic transition without a social rights-based approach being embedded within that. So the role for ActionAid Bangladesh in that, I think, is really quite exciting.
Okay, that's great. So you've already alluded to it first, but perhaps not the last trip to Bangladesh.
Absolutely. If I'm invited back, of course.
You're always invited. This is your second home. Any last-minute comments that you want to make before we wrap up today's session?
Sure. Look, I think that I can't take this trip and not consider my privilege within this. Coming from Australia, coming in as a white woman, and understanding the power that comes with that. So I think there's a lot that I've been learning about how I use my power and my privilege all through my life, but certainly over the last week, that has been really focal point for me as well. But I think also it's a really strong feeling of gratitude to you and to Farah and to the team, because you have been absolutely incredibly hospitable and just opened up your hearts and time for me, and that's not to be underrated. I really am very, very grateful for that.
Well, thank you very much, and you've certainly made us feel very part of you as well, and we're definitely delighted that you have spent your some of your valuable days with us. And we have made certainly some fond memories of our time together, and hopefully this will repeat again in the near future. And with that, another exciting podcast for you, and let's keep doing what we're doing, and let's leave the world a better place than we all found it. Thank you very much.